Hey guys, Hackersploit here, back again with another video, and welcome to the exploit development series. Now, given that the fact that you're reading the title and wondering, well, what does shellcode have to do with exploit development? Well, some of you will actually know that it's quite important, but the main question on your mind is, why are we using Msfvenom or Metasploit really, to generate shellcode? I thought you're going to teach us how to generate our own shellcode. Well, that is true, and I am going to do that. But the reason I'm starting off with Msfvenom is because we need to understand a few things before we actually delve into creating our own shellcode and obviously using them with exploits. Now, before we move any further, let me first explain what we're going to be doing. So we are going to be generating shellcode with Msfvenom. Now, for those of you who do not know what Msfvenom is a combination of MSF payload and Msfencode and is used to generate payloads, all right? Or actual payloads is the correct word. Now, shellcode is used or inserted into the payload to exploit a vulnerability. So it's sort of inserted inside an exploit or a payload, to exploit a vulnerability. We will be looking how to write our own in this series, but for now, I simply want to explain a few concepts here with bad characters, etc., etc. Alright, so what I do recommend if you are going to be watching this series is to get accustomed to the C programming language. I will be covering the basics, but after that you should be pretty familiar with it because I am going to be going at a slightly faster pace in this series because we have to cover quite a bit. Alright, so we'll be looking at generating a reverse shell, with shellcode here with Msfvenom. So let's get started. So you can use the Msfvenom command right over here in your terminal, and you can use the help menu. And the payload we'll be using a Windows reverse shell right over here. So if I'm to list the payloads right over here, which you can do right here by using the payloads or the list here, or the list payloads, which I can show you right over here. So list payloads, I believe is the syntax correctly. So let me just give that a few seconds to load up here, and after that loads up, we'll actually get started with generating our shellcode. So as I mentioned, the purpose of this video is to get you accustomed to what it is, to what shellcode is, how it works, and what you should be expecting. So yeah, we'll pretty much, I don't think I'll be able to find mine here, but we're looking for the Windows reverse, TCP, if I can find it here. In any case, I think I remember the exact name of it, so I'm just going to clear it out. And as you can see, Msfvenom is quite comprehensive in regards to the amount of payloads it does have and it does support, and also the encoders that it also has. Now, I have covered how to use Msfvenom in the past, so if you do want a video on that, let me know as sort of like a follow-up video, to cover this individual tool. In that case, let's get started with generating our payload. So to specify the payload, we use the P command. And now the payload is going to be the Windows reverse, I believe it is the reverse TCP, it's the shell reverse TCP right over here. And we now need to set the L host. This is the IP it's going to connect back to, 192.168.1.1. I'm not going to actually use the shellcode because we are not actually exploiting a vulnerability, although I will show you how to do that as we move along. And I will show you how to generate your own reverse shell with shellcode. So you then specify your L port here, which is going to be equal to 1234. And I'm just specifying a random port. And now we need to specify the format, and that is going to be in the C format, which is pretty much the standard for shellcode. And I'm going to hit enter. All right, so we'll give that a few seconds. And I'll now take a few minutes to explain bad characters, or a few seconds depending on how I essentially explain it. Alright, so you can see we did not specify a platform, which means it's going to use the 32-bit architecture, which is fine. And now we have the shellcode right over here. So this is shellcode right over here. And you might be saying, well, yeah, that looks pretty weird, but trust me, it will make sense in a while. So now your question might be, well, what exactly are bad characters? Or before we actually move on to there, I can very easily insert this into a payload to grant me or to give me a reverse shell. There's no problem or there's no doubt there. The issue comes into play with bad characters. So again, you might be asking, well, what are bad characters? Well, bad characters are characters that should not be used in our shellcode for very basic reasons. For a one simple reason is they may terminate the code before it's actually executed the entire piece of code. So it may only force us to run this bit of code right over here, or should I say this bit right over here, which means we are not going to be able to execute the entire reverse shell, which means we won't get a reverse shell. So bad characters usually terminate or stop the code before it executes completely. Now, one of them is the most popular one, or the most general one, is the null byte code, which is denoted by the times 00 or x00, whatever you want to call it, because I know everyone's going to have their own abbreviation for it. So the x00 right over here. And what this does is, or the reason it's a bad character is because it terminates the string. So it essentially just stops the code right after or it just stops it right over here, which means it's going to be pretty much senseless, because this amount of code is not going to do anything. So we need to execute the entire code. So we need to get rid of these bad characters from our shellcode. And again, you might be asking, well, how do we do that? Well, that's the awesome thing with Msfvenom, and this is what I wanted to explain now, is how you can use a tool like Msfvenom to actually get rid of bad characters. Now, another bad character is the, let me see if I can find it here, which is also quite a common one, especially with this payload right over here. If my memory serves me correctly, and that is the OD. If I can find it right over here. In any case, I think this shellcode does have it. I should have grabbed it. Let me just see if I can find it here. It should be somewhere around here. In any case, let me show you how to get rid of bad characters. So we are going to be encoding our shellcode, which is also very good, which means we're going to be avoiding detection quite nicely in case anyone finds our shellcode. Wink, wink. To do that, it's really very simple. We're going to be using the Shikata Ganai encoder to essentially encode the shellcode. I know I'm repeating a lot of words right now. Before we actually just clear that, what you need to do now is we need to, of course, we need to remove the bad characters and encode it. So again, we're just going to be generating the same one. So Msfvenom, and the payload is, again, we're going for Windows, and we're going for the shell reverse TCP, and now we're using the lhost as, lhost as 192.168.1.1, and of course this is just really this is just a very basic information I'm providing it, and nothing of real value in it. So lport, that is lport. Apologies guys, I'm getting really confused here. Lport, and after lport we then specify the format, which is again going to be in C, and we now need to specify the encoder, which is the 32-bit, so times 86 Shikata Ganai, which I believe, if I'm spelling it correctly, is underscore Shikata Ganai, and the bad characters is denoted by the B command right over here, or the B argument. And now we specify our shellcode. So the one thing to note is, to specify a bad character, we need to actually specify the backslash. I usually have a real trouble pronouncing that word. I really don't know why, but in any case, we want to get rid of the null byte, which is the one that is causing most of the issues here. And if you had any other bad characters, which we'll be looking into, trust me, I really want to go ahead with this series, because it is quite important to start writing your own shellcode or your own exploits, whatever you want to call it. So we specify our bad characters, and there can be plenty of them, all terminating or stopping the code from running in many different ways. But for now, let's just focus on the null code, or the null byte, as it's commonly referred to as, and we encapsulate them in the double quotation marks. Alright, so after this, we simply hit enter, and that is going to generate our shellcode for us, and it's also going to encode it and get rid of our bad characters. Now, as I've mentioned, this shellcode right over here is not free of bad characters. I know that, and you can pretty much find them essentially inspecting the code. I think we just found one right over here. I think I just saw it for a split second and it always disappears from my eyes. That's really weird. And in any case, here it is right over here, the times0d. So this is your shellcode. Now you might be saying, well, what do I do with shellcode? Well, this is your reverse shell right over here, which means this is what you would insert into a payload, or into a payload that is going to be sent to the target to essentially exploit a vulnerability. And if it's successful, then you will get a reverse shell on the listening host that we specified right over here. So this is shellcode, and hopefully I explained bad characters. And I know I have made video about buffer overflows in the past, but I want to cover it in great depth. So in the next set of videos, we'll be getting started with installing our debuggers and setting up our environment, and then moving on to writing our own shellcode. So as I mentioned, if you are interested in this series, I would recommend learning a bit of C so that you don't come into it, just completely confused, although I will be covering the basics. That being said, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like down below. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comment section, on my social networks, or on my website, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace, guys.